My name is Cami Thunder, and I'm a mixed media artist with an emphasis in pyrography. I have recently been met with some physical challenges, but it hasn't stopped me. I have progressed and figured out some new and unique ways to create art and continue my work. I am an overthinker. Let's start there. I tend to be plotting and planning things at all times. The surroundings around me will often kind of trigger an idea of something that once I get home, I have to get it out. Or I'll be on the treadmill and I'll have this idea just come to me. And it's like almost every line sometimes. So I have to get those out. Once I figure out the general theme, and get, different types of elements pulled into it. If I have to look up some mythology or some cryptids that might go beyond it, I like to hide different little elements into my pieces as well. So there's always kind of nods to things. So sometimes I'll jump off and do some research before I start diving into the sketches. A lot of the time, I will start my sketches. I'd say it's about 50-50 whether I start on my computer or if I start by hand. If the piece is highly geometric, then I definitely start on my computer. I got Photoshop when I was 12 years old, and I decided at that point in my life that I was introverted and wanted to stay in my little office and learn how to post pixels. And so I got really obsessed with that. I tend to get obsessive about hobbies that pique my interest. So with that as my background, I know those programs backwards and forwards just as well as I know how to write. But yeah, so it's either digital or it starts physical. From there, I kind of decide whether it's going to be a more dimensional piece. If there are background elements that kind of stack on top of each other, sometimes I'll break those apart and decide that I want to laser cut them first so that all of my pieces are dimensional and there's depth in them. And then I can put other elements in, like, dried flowers or bone or rocks or whatever else might happen to go in there. Or if I think the piece would be better on a flat surface, I will go through, I have a back storage of bric-a-brac, which is just all of my wood pieces that I get from thrift stores and hardware stores or outdoor stores sometimes, wherever they have just clean, naked wood really is what I'm looking for. Anything along those lines, I will pick it up in a heartbeat, especially if it's secondhand because they're cheap. But so I'll go through the items that I have and see if there's anything that match. If not, I might even hold on to the design for a little while until I find the right object to put it in. As I'm walking through a thrift store, I will see an item that just tells me exactly what it needs to be right then and there, and I can kind of jump right through the process. It just kind of depends where I start and where I end, but either way, there's typically, I haven't done a project that has come to completion without pyrography. I don't feel like a project is done until it's burned into something. Even if I turn it into a poster later or a tote or something later, it's never complete unless it's in wood. So even if I, put stains or colors or whatever into it, pyrography is always part of the picture. So I don't know, there's something about the wooden element that just is for me. So I, as a background, have had terrible joints my whole life. My first shoulder surgery was when I was around 16. So it's not a complete surprise that before the age of 40, I have lost the use of my right arm for anything more complex than, chopping vegetables, if even that. So I've had to switch within the last couple months to accommodate for it. And I've had to switch to my left hand for my drawing, my writing, anything that I do. I've basically just kind of switched it over to being left-handed. And as I've done that, I've found that some things come very easily. And I found that organic shapes and kind of more bizarre textures are very, very natural to my left hand. But as I was getting into writing, I really struggled with the letter forms, which is something very difficult for me, as I love letter forms and I love typography and I've studied it. So not being able to form them correctly was getting really frustrating. And I woke up from a dead sleep having had this dream that I was writing mirrored. And it just occurred to me that I could try writing backwards. And I slept on it and I didn't want to. I wanted to get up right then and go try it, but I decided to make the healthy choice and go to sleep instead of follow one of my bizarre paths of thinking. But I slept on it, and the first thing in the morning I got up and tried it, and wouldn't you know it, I can write backwards. Not just backwards, but mirrored. It's mirrored. So all of the letters come in the same sequencing that they're supposed to. And some of my ligatures, even the connecting things between the two, some of those have transferred from right to left as well. It is very mirrored to what I write in my right hand, and I imagine that not too long from now it will look the same in a mirror as my right hand writing did. At first it was really a lot of thought that I had to put into it. Like every single line, I really had to know where it was going. And I couldn't do too much of it in a day, not just for the physical fatigue, but I called it kind of itchy brain. I would get a really itchy brain as it was trying to, I feel like I was feeling it physically rebuilding neural pathways between one side of the brain to the other. And in the process of doing that, it is possible to have an itchy brain, and when you do too much of what it doesn't want you to do, it can get itchy. So at first it was really hard, and I had to limit myself just based on timing, because if it got too itchy, I started feeling really claustrophobic in my body. So over time I was able to kind of build that up. And now I get a lot less itchy in that process in my brain, but it is becoming more smooth, more fluid. I'm, reaching for things with my left hand now instead of my right, and not, triggering any pain or, thought processes that way. I'm mostly getting more natural with my left hand now, which is just wild. Spider hand is more free-flowing in a lot of ways. A lot of my art is very, very planned out at this point. As a graphic designer, I used to just build things in my head before I would build them in real life, and then I kind of just put everything together in my computer, and I would go through that process a lot with my art that I would do on the wood that I create. And I still do. It's still a process that I go through. It is a process that the left hand is capable of, and it is a process that it's capable of making the lines, for the most part, exactly how I want them to be, as right hand would do that. But the really surprising part is that left hand seems to be capable of a different type of creativity than what I had kind of trained myself in before. I'm kind of an unsure person, and so planning things and knowing exactly where a piece is going before I get into it is a really big part of how I think. And when I have just let the spider hand go about its own devices, it creates things that I don't plan. It just comes out. It spills from my brain in ways that I don't know that I was capable of doing before. So not only is left hand capable of replacing the right hand in style, it's also capable of its own style, which is just bananas to me. The Green Man that I worked on, I did that very methodically, very directly in the exact style of, how I put a lot of stuff together. And there's nothing against that style. Like I will absolutely be continuing that because that's how I think. But the Cephalopunctopus just came out, and both of them, I am very satisfied with how they look. So it's weird that I can get two different styles from my non-dominant hand, whereas only one from my dominant hand. It's just kind of a weird little quirk, bonus.